Hello, and thank you for checking out the very first video for the PlayWorshipKeyboard.com YouTube channel. My name's Blake. I just wanted to pop on here and tell you a little bit about myself, and just figured you might like to know a little bit about the person that is teaching you, a little bit about Worship Keyboard. So, first of all, if you're interested in Worship Keyboard, if you are playing Worship Keyboard and you want to take your playing to the next level, or if you're just beginning Worship Keyboard and you really just trying to figure things out, keep an eye on PlayWorshipKeyboard.com, because we do have an entire course coming up that is going to teach you guys how to play Worship Keyboard and take your playing to the next level. So just a bit about myself. I was born 3 months early, and as a result of that, they had to do quite a bit of surgery on my eyes, and I was actually blind because of that, so hence the shades. So just a little bit of context here. So I can actually see a little bit of light out of my right eye, and not much out of my left eye. Actually, really nothing out of my left eye. So, but as far as that goes, there's no shapes or shadows to it or anything like that. It's just basically light and dark. So, because I was blind, my grandfather, who was really into music, he really wanted me to play piano. So when I was about 5 or 6 years old, he got me into piano lessons, and kind of started out with a teacher that didn't really know how to teach someone that was blind, because and I kind of find that to be the same with teachers today. A lot of teachers, they put a book in front of you and say, hey, point to somebody out, what does it mean, play the note on the piano. And of course, I couldn't do that because couldn't see it, of course. So we finally found a teacher that would teach by ear, or knew how to teach by ear, or had taught by ear, or something to that effect, but who did eventually start teaching me by ear. And so the style I kind of started out with was just kind of, that's kind of the style that I started out with, and my teacher was really into this kind of rock stuff, and which is, as you can tell, it's not really my style. I can fake it, maybe for like a hymn on Sunday morning, but it's just not generally my style. So because of that, as a kid, I really didn't want to practice very much. Really didn't want to play piano, but my grandfather was always like, "Boy, you're gonna play that piano," and I was like, "Nah, I'm gonna go play Mortal Kombat at home for 6 hours," and so didn't really practice that style very much, and so because of that, I ended up with kind of the basic foundation of theory as a kid. Knew a little bit about the number system, how chords worked, and things like that. But as far as really practicing, I really didn't take it seriously until I was probably 11 or 12, and started playing at my local church. And then at that point, I really wanted to get into this kind of style of worship keyboard playing. And so I do remember the first chord that my teacher taught me that was a little bit more worshipful, rather than kind of the rock blues kind of material, and it was just a sus chord. And he taught me, hey, you can do this over a C or an F. C would be. So basically the right hand would just be G, C, D, G, and then you can resolve it just to a G, C, E, G in the right hand. So that. Got me, really into the door of how to play worship keyboard, and I kind of was really interested in this kind of flowy type style of playing, which I kind of just figured some of it out on my own, and then listening to other things. And there was a guy named Lonnie Williams who, I was probably 13 and 14. He started playing at the church, and he actually kicked me off of keyboard player, being a keyboard player for a while, being lead keys. He actually just kicked me off one night, and And the reason was because we were in the middle of of a song, and I was just from the verse, actually from all the way to the beginning to the end, I was doing all these, feels and whatever song it was, and I was just all over the place, and he had just come in, and I thought, I was a little kid, and I thought, man, I'm gonna show this guy how good I am at keyboard, and so he walks up to me and reaches his hand out, puts his arm around my shoulder, and says, "Hey, buddy, what you were doing sounded great, all the feels and stuff," but he said, "Let me play lead keyboard for a while," and he actually said, "Hey, why don't you come over and why don't you play synthesizer?" And so basically what I ended up doing was these just basic chords on one. Basically every time we had a chord change, I would just be doing this, because what I was playing at the time was just pads. But what that taught me was, hey, you can't do that the entire time you play a song. It just doesn't. It's just not. Just doesn't work for the song. And he taught me a whole lot about dynamics and control, and what to do in the verse versus a chorus. And I learned a lot of feels from him as well. A lot of the arpeggiated stuff as well, I kind of got from a guy named Jordan Rudess. And this guy was a Dream Theater keyboard player, a prog rock band, and he had a solo album back in the 90s. It was just these kind of real flowy type of chords. And I kind of started to incorporate that into my playing. So anyway, if this style interests you, definitely subscribe to the channel, and again, keep an eye on playworshipkeyboard.com, because I'm gonna have an entire course there coming soon. So definitely thank you so much for checking out the channel. I'll see you in the next video.